podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and not a solicitation for business. The views and opinions in this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent the official standpoint of Title I. Now that we have all that legal jargon done, let's get ready for the Utah Real Estate Podcast.
I'm Scott Stevenson. I'm here with my co-host, Stephanie Scholl.
Hey, and since 2018, we have been here on this podcast to help you make smart moves in the Beehive State, whether that's buying, selling, investing, or just wondering what's next.
And what's next in Bluffdale is big. From the brand new Smith's grocery store to major road improvements and new business growth, this city is booming.
That's why we invited Grant Crowell, Bluffdale's Community and Economic Development Director, to give us the inside scoop on what's happening in this fast-growing community.
Let's start with the Smiths. It's something a lot of us have been talking about for a long time. I know for the last couple of years, I've been just waiting for those doors to open. How'd that come about?
I mean, just time, really. The Smiths company, I guess, looked at the site up to 20 years ago, and it took a minute for everything to kind of come together. The Woodbury family was really patient with their property and really wanted to ensure that there was an anchor there of a grocery store. In 2015, we had all the approvals. In 2016, we had the building permit ready at the counter, and then Kroger decided to redo how they were allocating their capital and pulled that project, even though everything was ready to go. And it took a long time for Kroger to get back. Woodbury decided to keep moving on some of their other pad sites there and the Fat Cats and other things in the project and reconfigured it a little bit, but still left the space for it. And we worked and worked and worked. I mean, there was some times where we were going out to the market and looking for any grocery store, just beating the bushes and trying to find anyone who might be interested in the community and market studies and all those things. But it all came back. Kroger reanalyzed it and decided time was right and just started working on all the details of the site planning and engineering, working with Woodbury. So we had a really great partner there with the Woodbury Corporation. So, I mean, time. I guess there's just a time for things.
Well, I just opened here, what was it, a week or so ago, and I've gone in there myself. It's just beautiful. It's big, and it's so nice to have a grocery store that's right down the street because we were always having to go into Draper or go up to Harriman or wherever the case may be. So this is fabulous. They're building some other things in there. What else is going in that same plaza?
The other thing that's under construction is a multi-tenant pad building that Woodbury will own and operate just behind the Zupas. And it's got one drive-through, and Mo Betta's is local food franchise that will be in there. That was the only one I think that we've really had formally announced. But, Woodbury doesn't just spec out buildings. They're not going to build one if they don't have some tenants lined up. So I'm pretty confident they have some other things happening in there. One person told me once the best time to announce if a business is coming is at the grand opening because you know that they're there. But when we get a tenant improvement building permit or something, that's pretty good confidence level. And so I know they'll have some other ones coming. And then their leasing agent told me at the Smiths opening that they're getting ready to build another one of those buildings. There's a pre-application meeting for another car wash. We've been trying to get a hardware store over there also for years. And I don't know, that one didn't really happen, but Woodbury knows what they're doing.
Are they the ones that rent out all the property there?
They own most of the property. They have sold some of the pads to others. So there are some other owners in there, like the hotel is owned by others, but they own the building where the Fat Cats is. They don't own the building where the Smiths is. They don't own like those office buildings, but they own like where the Beans and Brews is. So they do it both ways.
Homeowners, residents, we don't think of all the time and effort it goes to try to get a big grocery store in an area. And so I'm sure that the residents of Bluffdale are so grateful for this, like Scott was saying, because they don't have to go to other cities.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even go into there's all the engineering and the traffic and UDOT and all the other fun stuff that happened during all those years that we just do here every day. It does take some time.
Well, one of the projects that I see going on that I'm really interested in because I don't know how you guys are doing it. On 14600, that crossing there where you got the under the bridge and you guys are expanding that, how's that gonna be done? And when is it gonna be done?
That's an amazing project. I can't explain it as well as the engineers, but basically they're going to use this technology to box jack two huge boxes underneath an active rail line. And it's taken, it seems like a couple of years to get approval from Union Pacific. It's very novel in the United States. It's something they do pretty often in Europe, this method. And basically they set up the structure, make the the structure that holds up the rail line, and then they jack in these boxes like half a meter at a time. Each one of these boxes will be 2 lanes of traffic plus a trail on the side, or sidewalk trail, and then they'll just do it, and the outages on the train line are very short, like just a couple hours. Before we did that, we had to, concrete box the Salt Lake City Canal, so there's just, like, very little room. You have you're descending, you have to go under the train line, you gotta go over the, canal, and then, to the west, and, it's pretty complicated and, pretty involved, but it's gonna go through. That roundabout will be, gone. It'll be 4 lanes of traffic and, like I said, with the sidewalk trail on there, and, yeah, as far as the timing, I was talking to our city engineer this week. He's hoping they really just start digging the hole this year, and then it's just a matter of how long the contracts are. I really hesitate to say a date. There's gonna be a closure on the road for the community for, like, a really long time. That's in the engineering department. I think they have their own website on it, so I'd be remiss if I told you the exact dates, but it is happening, and that's another one we've been working on for years, trying to find funding, trying to find the design, trying to find the right contractors. Um, when you're dealing with the Salt Lake City Canal, they have a lot of requirements when you're dealing with Union Pacific. There's also a UTA Frontrunner line on there, and just ongoing traffic. We got utilities working right now. I just drove through there. Electric lines are being moved right now. Um, so yeah, just trying to connect the east and west sides of the community better.
So you say it'll probably be closed down for a little while or quite a while?
Yeah, it's gonna need to close down for several months, probably longer than some people would hope for, but if we kept it open, you'd have to be doing 2 projects at once. It'd cost a lot more money, and it would actually take
Yeah.
longer. You have to do traffic control. Anyway, I think that's what's been decided.
Well, and I think that this is why it's always good to talk about new projects because it sounds like the 4 lanes and the bike paths and everything afterwards, it's gonna be awesome, and the traffic during it probably won't be as great, but then if people know something better is coming, it's like, "Okay, like, it's okay."
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of demand between Redwood and I-15, and we have the Point project, but we also have our own internal demand from all of our growth. I know some folks, this is a very, kind of older rural part of the community where these roads go through to the west, and, there's some concern of changing the character, but we also have issues with just the backup. If a truck gets stuck there, we have some safety concerns and just some circulation concerns. So that decision was made a while ago to do this. It just took a while to get the project together and get funding lined up and all those fun things.
So I'm assuming that road, 146, is gonna be connecting, of course, to 15, but also the point. And how involved is Bluffdale with the point?
I mean, we do communicate with the point regularly. I mean, as you probably know, the entire boundary of the point is within the city of Draper. Um, but some of the access roads, like the beginning of Port Rockwell is in Bluffdale at the moment, and as it goes north, the Frontrunner station that the legislature funded is actually on Bluffdale City, just right on the edge of the Bluffdale Draper City boundary. And there's some utilities or some drainage ways, and there's some things. So we're in pretty regular contact with them, but we don't have any like regulatory relationship or role for it.
I mean, I know there's a lot going on there. I know that's in Draper, but it's so right on top of Bluffdale.
I've heard next year, if you look really closely, they've been working on the road from the 600 West Bangor interchange
Yeah.
southward, and they've just reached 146. There's people out there right now. I would imagine you'll see some bridging of the canal over the winter because they're shutting off this is the week the water gets shut off for the most part, and I imagine you'll start seeing that connection. And what we've heard is next year vertical occupancy. I think what I heard yesterday is some occupancy in 28.
That's not too far.
Don't know exactly which piece of that they're building
Yeah.
first. They have some grand plans.
I would imagine that all of this development and whatnot that's going on in Bluffdale should be good for home prices in Bluffdale, meaning they'll stabilize or maybe go up.
It seems like the trend in Salt Lake County, Bluffdale, Utah is it just keeps going up. I don't see how this would turn it the other direction, but isn't appraising kind of an art? That's just the trend. We're in one of the fastest growing places in the United States. There's a lot of attention here, and then you can get into the whole, how does that relate to our housing questions, I suppose. But
What are you most excited about that you guys are working on right now for the future? Like, what projects are most exciting for you?
yeah, it's kind of like now that you have a grocery store, what are you going to talk about?
A post office. That's what we need.
Yeah, I heard Harriman was trying to work on that. They'll
Are
probably
they?
get the
Oh,
next one, but
I would love it if they did.
the long term big goal, I suppose, for us that we want to think about, for like the next 50 years would be what happens when the gravel pits redevelop. That's not a tomorrow project. It's probably not something. I don't even know if I'll get to work on it, but that's like one. That's like the one that's way out there that has a lot of potential impact. It's very large. It's hundreds of acres. It's as big or bigger than the point, and so that's probably like the long term outlook for the general plan.
Well, that's interesting. I never thought is that part of Bluffdale?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big chunk in Bluffdale, and there's a bigger chunk in Draper. So Geneva is the largest land holder, and when they're done mining, they can become a land development company. But they do have a lot of mining, but they also are looking for the future. Some other, it was the station, it was the Frontrunner station that is going to be done maybe 2030 or 2031, and then working on a station area plan and seeing if there's any opportunities that provides us in the city to have access to and from transit and see how that potentially impacts the community or land uses. So that's probably a more short term. For me personally, I love working on parks and trails projects also, and so we just finished our parks comprehensive parks plan and a comprehensive active transportation plan, which is that's a term that's jargon for things that aren't cars. You can't just say it's bikes, peds, things with wheels. So those are pretty excited. I work on trying to figure out how to get some, if it's possible, to get some moderate income housing anywhere in the community because the state's asked cities and counties to come up with plans for that. So those are kind of harder to do in the suburbs, I think, sometimes. But some things like that. Look at my list. The 146 South is really exciting project for sure. We talked about that. Filling out some of these retail spaces. We have a couple little properties on Bangor and Redwood that the city owns, and like where the McDonald's is, just south of Bangor. We worked on that. That was something we owned. We're not usually developers, so that was kind of novel. So we have a couple other pieces just near that McDonald's on Bangor and Redwood. So seeing what comes in there is a project
Well,
we're excited about.
I'll send my love message from my wife of getting McDonald's close by.
Yeah, that was really exciting. Our former city manager worked, and it was a dream he had, and we were able to implement it. It took a long time, but there's a project that really, honestly, in my life though, probably about 7 years, because we started with when the Maverick was relocated, which I think was 2017 or when we started the zoning. Anyway, the whole process to like accumulate the land and lay out the roads and everything started with that Maverick, and it took I think it was like 7 years or so before the McDonald's actually ended up on that property. We had plats and land swaps and all sorts of things that went on, and so yeah, we're excited about that McDonald's. We think it looks really good, and yeah, I'm glad your family enjoys
Oh
it.
yeah. And the other thing is I see they're working on the old property where that old Maverick was. It looks
Oh
working
yeah,
on
that's
what are
going to
they
be
putting there?
O'Reilly's
Really?
Auto Parts.
They are
Yeah,
fabulous.
so they just started that. Yeah, so I don't know, like the scale in Bluffdale is different sometimes. West Jordan has thousands of acres, and sometimes we're like working with dozens until the gravel pit redevelops. And so things around the point's impact, including the Frontrunner station, like 146 South, how do the land use patterns change over there because of the point? Do we have some opportunities? Or is it gonna take all the opportunities? That's a good question. I think we don't know the answer to. I think it'll be both, depending on which sector you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, those are exciting things.
What's new with residential? Like, because I know that one thing with Bluffdale is you guys have a lot of properties that have a lot of acreage. Is that still continuing for new construction, or is it going to be smaller plots?
Yeah, that's a $1,000,000 question that's also in the election that's upcoming right now. But historically, the west side, mostly west of Redwood, has been 1 acre lots. And there's no current zoning that really is different than that for most of west of Redwood. There's a few little pockets where there have been some like small PUDs or there's a commercial node at 27th and Bangor. Unless the council works on changing the general plan and the zoning scheme, we'll probably see that same type of pattern. But what we're seeing is, the absorption rate is a lot slower on those acre lots, but what we're seeing is like home values like increasing pretty substantially in those acre lots, and they're really not bringing the horses with them. They're bringing like extra buildings and swimming pools and like high value construction, and man, and that's the what it seems to be, that type of commodity. I don't necessarily say it's an estate, but it's those larger types of things when maybe the acre lots years ago were because there was space for their animals, and so we're not seeing a lot of the new construction bringing the animals. There's still the animal rights are a really important part in the acre lots and why people cherish that also because we still do have a lot of horses here. Our big projects, the projects with 1/4 acres or smaller, are historically been east of Redwood Road. And there's a few smaller projects are in the entitlement phases. South end of Redwood Road, there's a project called Bring Her Station. It has some new entitlements for like 99 townhomes. The frontier of Bluffdale is probably on the south end for residential, like way out Redwood Road. And then like east of the river was our biggest project, Independence, which was 500 acres and had about 3,500 dwellings and, some single family, some townhomes, some apartments. All the single family lots over there are really built out. And so that project is kind of nearing its end. There's a couple apartment entitlements that are waiting, and what we're hearing from that sector is they're just the financing and the performers aren't working like as well as they used to for the apartment construction. And so we do have a lot of entitlements for those, and we're just seeing, who's going to be the first one to pick some of those up. But in the zoning queue, there's not a lot of like new zoned projects. And so we've experienced a bit of a slowdown honestly, on residential new starts because of Independence was our biggest project and Bring Her Station was probably our second biggest project when they kind of reached the end of their inventory. So it'll be interesting to see. People call and ask us that all the time, but the city council has been pretty steadfast in keeping the lower density on the west side. So I don't know, things can always change. Um, and then we'll just help them figure it out, I guess. Yeah.
Well, as a resident of Bluffdale for the last 7 or 8 years, I love the rural nature of it. And also, of course, it's been nice that there's been addition of stores and grocery stores and the Maverick and McDonald's and all those kind of things, which help the population. There's been, I don't know, I know you're not with UDOT, but do you know of any Redwood there gets packed back and forth to rush hour? And other than that, it seems to flow pretty well. Do you know if there's any designs from say Bangor south to do anything from UDOT, or has there been any talk at all?
If you look at the like really long range plans, there's widening on there
Mm. There's room
going
for it.
south, but it's not in any funded phase. So the regional transportation plans are like they have phases and then they have like fiscal constraint phases, and basically,
Yeah,
it's not funded and it's way out. They'll probably want to see what the impact of Mountain View connecting is and some other projects because they have a lot of things they're
they
working
do.
on. So it is in the long range plan. but question is how long range or what the need is. It's a tough weave. The weaving of all the people during the peak hours is kind of tough. I come southbound from Riverton to work in the morning. Yeah, it gets kind of tough, and see how the grocery store and everything adds to that.
So I want to know, like, how, because it's always so fascinating, like people that are in your position of either city planners or you're over like the community and the economic development. Is that what you like grew up wanting to do as a kid, or like how did you get into it?
Yeah, that's interesting. No, I didn't even know this field existed when I was a kid. I don't even remember what I wanted to be when I was a kid. Think about that. But I have an undergraduate in geography, which is interesting, but that's actually was housed in the same building I went to the University of Iowa as the urban planning school. I started getting some seasonal jobs in Iowa City, just seasonal city work. So I started meeting some municipal employees, and then when I met the planners, I got the seasonal work doing like code enforcement in the city of Iowa City housing and building department between just after undergrad, and then I met city planners and other people working in that kind of field, and so I just started heading that direction and went and got my graduate degree in urban and regional planning. And I started out as a planner in Utah in '97 at Utah County, and you get exposed to all these things, and I'm in a small organization, so I wear lots of hats, and so planning and building and economic development and code enforcement. I have almost 30 years experience in Utah, so I've done a lot of different things, business licensing, or I don't know, animal services even. So at this point, I'm pretty versatile, but it was really city planning that got me into it, and economic development is so close to that because you're working on all these projects and you're dealing with all these people, investors, builders, small ones, big ones. Um, and if you pay attention, you can start picking that stuff up. Some planners don't like that stuff. They'd rather do other things. Some are more into design and or whatever. Or they're in a bigger place and they just work on one thing. And I've always been in organizations where I was able to be pretty versatile and work on a lot of different things. Um, so and at some point I just became a manager and just kind of started moving up. I like economics. I remember studying economics in school, but I never thought of it as a career. It was just something to study. I think it's fascinating to me, honestly, how people make deals work. How people make decisions, why they make decisions, and it's getting more and more detail oriented, right? With all the analytical tools that people have available, because you want their business to be successful and you hope that they're using some of the analytical tools and they're not just putting it all on their credit card because they have a whim. They're on a whim, and it's like I hope their whim is Shark Tank worthy and it makes it, but I also hope they come here and be successful, and they've done some of that. And so look, it's gotten more and more complex, I think, or more and more sophisticated, because sometimes the margins are really thin, right, on some certain businesses, and real estate prices are so high. So like all that stuff works, and I work with the planners every day here, and that's kind of funny because not all economic development officials at cities, I don't know, I'm probably in the minority, have a city planning background. Some of them come from straight real estate or have an MBA or something, or just came up, I don't know, or city managers don't always have planning backgrounds. They have an MPA, public administration. So I feel like it's well suited, my background. Maybe I'm just lucky too. I just ended up here.
Well, Bluffdale's lucky to have somebody who has experience, so that we'll go forward from here on
Thank
out,
you.
and we're going to see exciting things in Bluffdale.
Well, thanks for saying that, Scott. Appreciate that.
So I want to know, so do you see a lot of people voicing their opinions, or is the public not as involved?
People are very involved and they're very protective of certain aspects of the community, particularly if there's any potential changes to these 1 acre areas seem to get the most interest.
Mhm.
It's interesting because you used to always see them at the meetings, but what has happened now is all the meetings are broadcast. So just because they're not at the meeting does not mean they're not paying attention and participating in their own way, or watching the meetings and contacting their elected officials and sharing their opinions. And so, no, I think people really do care a lot, and we hear from a lot of them. It's not uncommon in any city. If there's a big change in a field near you, you're very interested because it's right by you, um, and you just want to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on you or change the character or make negative. But no, that isn't that's not missing here.
Plenty of opinions in Bluffdale.
It's
But that's
election.
good. That's good that people are getting involved and like what you're talking about, that people that have the 1 acre property, they're like fighting for that because let's be honest, in Utah to have more than an acre is a big deal right now. In
Yeah.
Salt Lake County, I mean, to have more than an acre is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare commodity. There's a few places here and there. There's a few larger lots left in Draper. There's a small section of sandy with horses in it. Yeah, and they're just kind of rare.
Well, is there anything that you see down the road that excites you about Bluffdale?
We're excited about the potential to add to the trail network. Like we have this vision of the Rose Creek corridor going kind of east-west around town back to the river, and we have some sections we've acquired and some sections we're planning. The potential for the canals, which we have 6 or 7 of, to be used as more officially as trails. People walk on them all the time, and how those can connect, and the potential for some other parks and growing our recreation programming to continue to fit and evolve with what the community and the families are looking for. That's really exciting. Not always in my department. I'm always excited when there's new restaurants or new projects that provide something that folks really want. Aside from wanting their taxes to be spent wisely, they also want to be able to do something in town and eat something in town and be entertained and not to drive far away. And so even like we're having a Jersey Mike's opening, like people are really excited about that, or like a McDonald's, in Sandy, there's probably 4 of them, I don't know, but in Bluffdale's like, that's the McDonald's. So like seeing the excitement we get off even some of these small wins is pretty good. Really interested to see if some of the new residential projects can integrate different housing types. If we can, we have to kind of roll with what the state gives us guidance, cities and counties guidance on affordable housing and moderate income housing, and it changes every session. And so we have to be kind of nimble because some of what it comes across sometimes as being abrupt or like trying to tell communities that they can't do as much of their own planning. Sometimes it comes across or is heard that way. But we have to be creative in the solutions. But if we're, as a city, not providing any solutions, then the state will provide them for us. And so that takes some creativity. And it is something that people need to understand, that we're not making that up. We're being asked to be part of the solution. And all cities are. And if cities aren't, like I said, they will give us some solutions, and they have. And so I guess I'm not excited about that, but it'd be exciting if we could come up with some cool residential project in the future that would be cool, have some cool attributes for that community, whatever it was, housing types or parks and trails, and still also, help the state with their goals and have them acknowledge that we're part of the solution. So that could be exciting. It's just we don't have as much land as some of the other places to work with. So it's always interesting to see like which piece is going to be brought to us. Some of them have to be assembled, and then that takes neighbors getting along on the sale, right? And so, so I like those kind of creative problems to solve. Like, hey, I know. What if we did these 3 things together here and we approached it this way? Um, so I don't know. I really like the people we work. There's a lot of great people we work with here. A lot of great, smart people and collective experience. That's pretty exciting for me. Yeah, I like seeing how these deals get put together too on the economic development side, and it's just one phone call might be the thing. Like, you really never know. It's mostly like leads or just fishing or whatever. Once in a while, it's like, wait a minute, that one might be a thing. Let's see what we can do to put this deal together.
It's really interesting what you said about that you get guidelines from the state.
The legislature and the governor are very serious about this, and if you hear them talk at all, like there's an interim session on it probably this week. It's like all the there's a lot of committees on it, and they are very serious. So what we did is we've done a number of things, but didn't used to allow detached accessory dwelling units, like the detached garage to have an apartment. And now that is legalized in most places in town under most conditions. Not every single thing fits. But the state already told cities that they had to allow the internal accessory dwelling units. Like pretty much every city in the state has to have a plan for those. We were kind of ahead of that, and we're kind of ahead on the detached. And then we hear things like, well, the legislature is probably going to start telling cities they have to allow the detached ADUs. So if that happens, we're ahead of that. But they might. Some other states are saying, you have to allow duplexes by right in single family zones, like from the legislature, and they haven't gone that far. But cities rules only exist to the extent the legislature allows them to exist, because cities are like children of the state law, um, and so they could. And so we have to stay tuned. And yeah, I know some people get upset about that.
Well, that's an important point because sometimes you look at your local officials and think they're the ones that are controlling everything. So you blame them for everything also. And it may not be coming from your local planners and mayor, et cetera, et cetera. It's coming from the state. That's important for the people to understand.
Yeah, it is. I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand how the whole framework works, because who spends all their time trying to figure
Yeah.
out, what the hierarchy of everything in the legislature and your home when you're just busy every day trying to survive with your family, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we exist in a legal framework, and we do get pretty direct guidance from the legislature sometime, and they seem to be very interested in housing right now. If you do any research with the legislature or listen to what the governor's working on.
Well, this has been fascinating because Bluffdale's got a lot of things going on, and it's been great talking with you about all these different projects. I'm looking forward to everything. I'm looking forward to living here another 10, 15 years where I can see all of this come to pass.
Yeah, I hope so. It's good. It's a great place. People really love it here. It's really good to see how much people care about and what they love, because some people on the west side love it for this reason, and the folks in the newer neighbors love it for other reasons, but they all seem to love it.
For those of you that want to learn more, I'm going to link their website right in the show notes. And if they enjoyed this episode, what should they do, Silver Dollar Man?
Well, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and share the love. Then join us next time right here on the Utah Real Estate Podcast.